run for this office and your background both as a county commissioner and a state legislator.
Sure. I decided to run for county commissioner in McDowell County in 2010. 2 years into that term, my predecessor, Representative Gillespie, was selected to be part of the cabinet of Governor McCrory. I was fortunate enough to be appointed to that state house seat literally day one of the January 2013 session. My district is the 85th district. That includes Avery, Mitchell, and McDowell counties from the western part of the state. It has been the honor of my life, Michael, to represent the 85th district in the state house. Speaker Moore has given me tremendous opportunities. First, as Health and Human Services Appropriations Chair, then in addition to that, Chair of Health Policy, and then this last session, being a full chair of appropriations. I can't thank him enough for the opportunities that he's given me, and I can't thank the people of the 85th district for the opportunities that they have given me over the last 8 years. I knew early on, Michael, that I was going to serve 4 terms in the state house. I was never going to be a lifer. I wanted to go make a difference and do the best I could while I was there, and then I was probably going to come home. The only position that had an appeal to me at the state level beyond the state house was Commissioner of Labor. I had no indication early on that Commissioner Berry was not going to run again. I was prepared to support her for another 4-year term. She's done such a great job. I was going to support her and work for her as hard as I could. So with that being said, I was planning on this being my last term in the state house and that being it, because I didn't want to run for an office just for the sake of running for an office. It had to be something that I felt like I could make a contribution and something that I had an interest in. And frankly, Commissioner of Labor was it. I just didn't think that opportunity was going to present itself. I didn't know Commissioner Berry that well beforehand. I know her really well now, but beforehand we weren't that close. So I find out that she decides that she does not want to run again for Commissioner of Labor. So the decision wasn't really hard for me because I knew that I wasn't going to run for the state house again, and that was the only position that I wanted to run for. So as soon as she announced that she was going to retire at the end of this term, it took me about, after talking to my family, it took me a very short period of time to say, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. I don't know if I'm supposed to win. That's up to the heavens. But I know I'm supposed to run for this just by the way that it's all worked out. So I'm glad to be with you here today. I'm proud of the support that we got in the primary as I crisscrossed this state and talked about the message that I wanted to relay. And fortunately, we were able to be successful in the primary. And I look forward to finishing this thing strong and winning this thing come November.
That's outstanding. You know, when most people think about the Commissioner of Labor in North Carolina, they immediately think of elevators. I don't know why. Sherry has done such a great job and is ubiquitously known as the elevator lady across the state. But that's not all the Commissioner of Labor does. Tell folks about the position and why you're interested and why this was the one shot that you wanted to take it a statewide.
Sure. It's very broad in scope what the Labor Department is responsible for. And that's why it had a level of appeal to me, because it was not just focused on insurance or what the Secretary of State does. This is a broad office that it has oversight responsibilities for. 4 million workers in our state, Michael, that the Labor Department is responsible for keeping safe. That's 270,000 public and private sector businesses. The budget for the Labor Department is $38 million with 350 employees. Specifically on what the Labor Department does. It's not real sexy stuff. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not real sexy stuff. But the Labor Department and the Labor Commissioner has to work real closely with the agriculture in our state. And as you know, and as your audience knows, how critical that is for our state. Well, migrant workers come here through a federal program separate from the immigration debate. These are things that are done legally to bring workers to North Carolina to work, particularly in the East, some Christmas tree farms in the West, but particularly in the East, these migrant workers come to work. Well, these farmers have to have a place for these migrant workers to work while they're here before they go back home. The Labor Department is responsible for the inspection of those houses. It doesn't have anything to do with the visas or the work permits or anything like that. The Department of Labor is responsible for inspecting the houses that the migrant workers work in. In addition to that, boiler safety. Every boiler in the state has to be inspected by the Labor Department. Every carnival, every fair in our state, the rides at those carnivals have to be inspected by the Labor Department. The state fair, unfortunately, which had to be canceled because of COVID-19, but in normal years, all the rides of the state fair have to be inspected by the Labor Department. Retaliatory employment discrimination. It protects employees from retaliation for exercising their rights under the North Carolina Workers' Compensation, Wage and Hour, Health and Mine Safety and Health Acts. In addition to that, the enforcement of the minimum wage laws, the overtime laws, vacation pay. The Labor Department is responsible for all of those things. But the main thing that the Labor Department is responsible for is keeping the employees of North Carolina safe. A quick story, if I can, Michael. A lot of people may not know this, but I started, when I was putting myself through school with a young family, I started as a correctional officer back home. And I would go to school at night while I was a correctional officer during the day. But every day before we went in together as officers, we made a pact that we would walk in together and we would walk out together. Mr. Chairman, that's exactly what I want to do for the employees of North Carolina. I want to make sure that all 4 million workers walk in together and that they walk out together. And I think you do that. I think the best way to do that is the way that Cherie Berry's done it over the last 20 years, through training, through consultation, through collaboration, through education, on the front end, so you don't have the heavy hand and the punitive hand of government on the back end, because that doesn't help anybody. I was talking to some contractors today. They said, Josh, all we want is someone that's going to work with us. Come in and tell us what we need to do better. Let's do training and education on the front end so we don't have accidents on the back end. Not come in with an agenda, not come in on a crusade, but work with us so we can keep the employees of North Carolina safe. That's exactly what I want to do.
Well, I tell you what, I've had a number of conversations with farmers all across the East. And other than the Secretary of Agriculture position, of course, the one position statewide that they really are focused on in terms of the Council of State is the Commissioner of Labor position. And I know that you've made great strides in getting out and meeting with those folks. How has it been for you as you've taken this message across the state and talked to, the ag sector, the manufacturing sector, other areas where we've got folks that are going to be affected by this position, and what's the reception that you've gotten?
I think more and more people are seeing how critical this office is. I've had positive receptions. I tell you, it's been weird. Before the primary, it was a different county every day, talking to someone in ag, talking to manufacturing, talking to different folks around the state. But literally right after the primary, the world shut down. And it's been a challenge to try to get that message out, but we've tried to reach out to the ag community, to the manufacturing community, we've had several workers groups that we've had conversations with. So it's been good. And I think more and more people are realizing what the Labor Department does and how critical it is that we get someone in there who's willing to work with all parties and not just be on a crusade.
Yeah, I was up in your neck of the woods today. Did an event over in Henderson County with Madison Cawthorn, and he was talking about how we've got kitchen table issues, and that it's not really about this 3/10 or 2/10 of GDP points, or what the unemployment rate writ large is, 5.12 or 5.13, but it's really, how is this helping my family? How is this working with me? And the labor department really does have a direct impact on every family and every worker all across the state.
It sure does, and especially with COVID-19 and how volatile our system is right now. Businesses, employers, and employees alike, they don't have a large margin for error right now. So they need someone in the labor department, a commissioner of labor, who is going to work with them to make sure employees stay safe, but do it in a collaborative way. Because if the heavy hand of government, the punitive hand of government comes in, that's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help employees or employers if nobody has a job. So to your point, it is absolutely critical that we get this right.
Yeah.
We don't have a margin for error.
Yeah, and I think that when you look, especially where we are with employment across the state, with 1.1 million people who are unemployed right now because of the COVID lockdowns, that every company is scrambling to try and figure out how to make this work. And the one thing that we have got to see that we're not seeing right now from a governor, from a council of state, is creative ways to make sure that companies can operate safely, but operate. The fact is, we had the governor just extend his phase 2 lockdown for another 5 weeks today. And the answer can't be no, 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 no. For the companies that have been shut down, whether it's gyms or bars or restaurants or other companies that are affected, throughout the course of this lockdown, the answer no is not what they need to hear. It's not what families need to hear. It really is a almost a cop-out, frankly, that there has not been any investment by this administration to find ways to get to yes and help people get back to work.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I will say, as a legislator, I get an email, at least 5 or 10 emails per day and several per week, on people who are unemployed and can't navigate the system. And I have to be honest with you, there are people hurting. There are employees. As someone who wants to be commissioner of labor, I am concerned about employees or those that are unemployed. And I have to be honest with you, some things have been done good, but there hasn't been a sense of urgency when it comes to those who are unemployed from this administration. There are people that are scared. There are people who are worried, who can't get their unemployment benefits because there isn't that sense of urgency from this administration. And Republican, Democrat, we just got to do better. We got to do better than what the current administration is doing.
Yeah, being ranked last in the state for processing unemployment claims on a timely basis is definitely a pretty dubious distinction that we've got here in North Carolina. Yeah. Hey, I want to switch gears on you real quick and ask you. We've had a chance at your events across the state to talk to your lovely bride, Valerie, and get a chance to know her. So I got to ask, how did you get lucky enough to get her to say yes? And what's it been like, with her at your side as you've gone through your public, career?
Sure. I definitely outkicked my coverage when it come to that. We also have the same birthday. We were on a blind date set up by my aunt. And we just kind of went from there. And we just celebrated our 18th anniversary in May. And I can't tell you what a blessing it's been to have a wife and a daughter who have supported me throughout this last 10 years. First a county commissioner and the euphoria of your first office, to moving to the state house and somewhat thinking that maybe political time had come to an end. And then this opportunity presented itself. Valerie and Kennedy both have said yes every step of the way. And I couldn't do it without that. I mentioned this in my farewell speech on the House floor, that there's a popular song right now that says, I just want to say thank you for living this dream I know you never had. And they've let me live this and stuck by me through this over the last 10 years. And without that, it would be impossible to do.
Yeah, and I can tell you, with North Carolina being as big as it is, I always say that we've got 100 counties in 3 different time zones. That it really is tremendous, effort for you to be able to get across the state, and you meet so many people from so many different directions, and people throwing ideas at you. To have somebody, like her with you, and just to be a sounding board and a rational voice. My wife always has a very good habit of kind of yanking me back to reality, fairly harshly at times, and saying, hey, you need to look at the bigger picture here. What's it like for you to have that voice, when you're running statewide all across North Carolina?
You can't put a price on it, Michael. You really can't. There was one time back during the primary when I was in the eastern part of the state, and there was a big event in the far western part of the state, an hour and a half past me in McDowell County. And on short notice, I said, Valerie, I need you to go and speak for me at this event. And she just takes things in stride and said, I'm going. And to have that is you can't put a price on it. And at the same time, someone who does keep you humble. And my 15-year-old daughter, Kennedy, does a good job with that as well. I think I was on the phone with the speaker the other day about some nuance of managed care and Medicaid reform, $4.2 billion budget, trying to get this thing across the finish line. And my daughter comes to the steps and says, Dad, that's great, but I need you to make sure my volleyball uniform is washed and pressed before my next game. And I said, yes, honey, I'll do that. So they definitely keep me humble and remind me that my first duties are husband and dad.
Well, I think that means your priorities are absolutely where they need to be, and I think you're going to get broad acceptance of that. And it's really always fun for us to be able to talk with everybody on the chairman's chats, about their spouses and how important it is for you to have that balance in your life as you're kind of going through it. Want to revert back to kind of your track record. You've been a county commissioner, you've been a state legislator, and I really think that having the grounding that you got as a county commissioner really brings home the impacts. You've been able to represent McDowell County and talk to people there for a really long time. When you're contemplating, statewide budgets, when you're contemplating, working with the Senate, working with the governor, what does it mean to you to have that background in terms of how you process, right and wrong and up and down, and, always wanting to get it back to, base one with your constituents?
Again, you can't put a price on that either. That time as a county commissioner and learning about budgets from that angle and learning about different priorities and different interests and trying to bring all that together was just so helpful when I went to the state house. And then as I've progressed through the state house over the last 8 years, you gotta, and I don't need to tell you, you gotta work with a lot of different people and a lot of different stakeholders to make government work. There are no simplistic solutions to complex problems. There's just not. There's not one 30-second sound bites for the Medicaid budget or teacher pay or whatever the issue may be. Governing is hard, and anyone that tells you different is just not accurate. So each level has prepared me for the next level. And I know that's going to help me if I'm fortunate enough to be successful in November, because working with a Democratic administration to try to get things done on managed care that we've tried to work on, Senator Berger and Speaker Moore have made a commitment trying to get that across the finish line. And we did get that across the finish line and signed by Governor Cooper. So working with a Democratic administration, working with different members of the House, working with the Senate, a completely different chamber, working with the stakeholders, I think that's going to help me as I transition to Commissioner of Labor, working with employers, working with employees, working with 350 employees from the department, working with 4 million workers across this state. I think that's going to prepare me well, and I know that I'm ready for this opportunity because of that service as county commissioner and because of that service of 8 years in the state house.
Yeah, I think you're really uniquely qualified to be able to take this on and have an understanding, particularly, coming out of the legislature and the oversight roles that you've had with it. One of the key things that we talk about is you would not only be a commissioner in your own right and a boss of your own little fiefdom, but you actually would be a member of the Council of State. And so, as we have learned over the course of this year, unfortunately, the Council of State is really on a bipartisan basis supposed to be a series of advisors to the governor. And unfortunately, right now we have a governor who has completely disregarded not just the input and advice from the Council of State, but has rejected outright any recommendations that they've had or even met with them. Frankly, I think he's had 2 Council of State meetings in the last 4 months. So, there really is a governor go it alone that we've got here with Governor Cooper. But, with Dan Forrest at the top of our ticket and running a strong race, tell me what your vision is, for working with him as a member of his, cabinet and as the Council of State and being able to provide, guidance and advice to him on the issues that are in your world.
Yes. So great question. I know there is only one governor at a time, and there's only one governor. But the law says it needs to be more collaborative, and it needs to be more consultative than it currently is. These are literally life-changing decisions, Michael, and the Council of State has a role to play in that. And you mentioned Lieutenant Governor Forrest. He's made a commitment that it will be a consultative and collaborative Council of State. And I look forward to working with him in that capacity because it's designed and it's set up that way, and that's the way it should be. And I'm confident that Dan Forrest will do that.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier, the work that you've done in the House. If you look overall at what the Republican-led legislature has done since you've been in 2013, you've balanced budgets. You have increased teacher pay raise. You've increased infrastructure. You've increased highway spending. You've cut taxes for companies that have made North Carolina the #1 state in the Southeast in terms of attracting new businesses. And you've also cut taxes on families every single year when the government has not governor has not vetoed your bills. Talk about your track record personally as a tax cutter, as a fiscal conservative, as a conservative across the board, and how you see that record stacking up against what your opponents bring to the table, what the governor has brought to the table, and just what it would be like if we had faced this COVID shutdown economically without a rainy day fund, without a really solid economy, without a tax structure that works for all North Carolinians.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that you can be a fiscal conservative and you can support tax cuts. And it's the best I can tell, I supported every single tax cut that came across my desk. But you can also make wise investments at the same time. And that's what I've tried to do as an HHS Health and Human Services chair and as a full chair of appropriations. One example of that, Michael, the Rural Health Grant. As an HHS Health and Human Services appropriator, we were able to double their budget last year to provide a few years ago, to provide access to care to underserved areas of our state. And to bring it home a little closer, a homeless shelter, because of those grants, a homeless shelter in our state was able to hire a physician's assistant to come in and provide health care to the homeless individuals in that homeless shelter. That's just one small example of how you can be a fiscal conservative and you can make sure that we, as you said, have a tax structure that works, but help the most vulnerable at the same time. And that's what I've tried to do. In this latest budget that was unfortunately vetoed, we had increased rates for foster care parents. As you know, we've had struggles across this state to recruit good foster care parents. We were able in this budget to provide an increase. Unfortunately, it was vetoed, so they were not able to get that. There is something, and I won't go into too much detail, but there's something called innovation waiver slots that both Republicans and Democrats have agreed that needs to be done. That is the most vulnerable population that North Carolina serves. There was 1,000 slots in this budget. Unfortunately, it was vetoed. Significant increases for public health departments. That was vetoed. So my point in that is you can cut taxes, you can be a fiscal conservative, which I've been proud to do, and still target investments to where they're needed most. That's what I've tried to do, and I think that's what's worked. I think that's what we've done since January of 2013. I'm proud of that record. I'm proud of the record of education increases. I'm especially proud of what we've done in healthcare with increasing access to care. We need to do more, but I'm proud of that. So absolutely, those are things that with Dan Forrest as governor, we can continue to work on together.
Excellent. You know, we have about 12 to 15,000, sometimes even 20,000 people who watch the chairman's chats all across the state. And I know they're watching this because they want to get to know you. They want to know more about this race. Talk for just a minute about, your campaign, how it's going, the reaction that you've been getting across the state, and what people can do to kind of tap in and help you.
Sure. Let me take those in reverse. joshforlabor.com is my website. I would encourage you to go there. We're getting it updated almost on a weekly basis now. Also follow me on Facebook, Josh Dobson for Labor. I would encourage and hope that individuals would go there. Likewise, I don't hedge when I try to be honest and level with people. This race is going to be close. It is going to be on the margins. And I need all the help. I need anyone to donate, to volunteer, to tell your friends that we need to make sure that the Labor Department follows the same path that it's on, that Cherie Berry's been on, to elect Josh Dobson, the next Commissioner of Labor. I think people are hungry for a kind of politics that wants to bring people together, especially for a position like the Department of Labor. That doesn't need to be, a liberal crusade position like my opponent is trying to make it. It needs to be someone who is thoughtful, someone who can work with employees and employers and bring people together to make sure the employees of North Carolina are safe. And that's what I'm going to do if the good people of North Carolina make me the next Commissioner of Labor.
That's outstanding. So I do have one question that's been texted to me while we're talking, and that is, what is your daughter's reaction going to be when she sees your picture on every elevator that she gets in?
Well, most of the time she's not too impressed with her dad, so we'll see how that goes. But she's been great through all this and the traveling that I've had to do. She's been wonderful, so it's going to be good.
Excellent. Well, Josh, listen, I want to thank you for coming on the Chairman's Chat tonight. I want to thank you for all the work that you've done. You know, you came through, a heavily contested primary in really strong shape. You were able to win in all of the regions across the state and had a great group of counties that you were able to win in. And I think that bodes really well, because your message of working with folks and working with employers and making sure that we have a collaborative approach is something that's going to work in the urban settings. It's going to work in the rural settings, in the suburbs, and obviously with farm country. And I really do. I'm very excited about your race. So I want to thank you for stepping up. Also want to thank you for your service in the legislature. It's been really great to get to know you over there. And I want to, just commend you and make sure that everybody goes to joshdobson.com and signs up, gets the information from you, looks at you on Facebook, and makes those contributions. Is going to be absolutely essential. And so thank you again for coming. Thank you, Josh, for labor. Yeah. And then also, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight on the Chairman's Chat. And every week we're very excited about this series and getting a chance to introduce our candidates all across the state. So thank you again for coming on tonight and joining us, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Michael.